Old School Bodybuilding Clothing Company. If it's been 3.5 hours since you last ate protein and now you're starting to freak out, you are old school. If watching someone sit on a hammer machine for 5 minutes between sets playing with their phone pisses you off, you are definitely old school. OSBBC.com for the hardest training athletes.
You're funny.
Like I said. Do you like my tail?
Welcome back to Iron Rage. I am Dave Palumbo, and I'm here as always with Lee. Oh, where is Lee Priest? He's MIA, missing in action. Well, we'll find him. He was here earlier. I think he went to take a dump. You might have to, when you gotta go, you gotta go. Too much fiber lies, I guess. Now, today's show is gonna be an interesting one because, you've heard of postpartum depression, women, giving birth and then being depressed. Well, there's something known as post-contest depression. That's right. After people work their butts off, they sacrifice, they diet, they probably lose their job, they break up with their, relationship. The show's over, they got the trophy in hand, and then what? They're depressed, and they don't know what to do with themselves. And I want to ask Lee Priest, if he ever comes back to his chair over there, what was his solution? I know what his solution to post-contest depression was. It was to eat like buckets of Kentucky Fried Chicken back in the day. But I want to ask him now if he was doing it all again. Lee, if you competed again, I'm talking about post-contest depression. How did you combat it? When the show was over, you had your trophy in hand, you didn't have a job, you had your bills were behind, and now the reality of your situation was back. You had to try to get back in, your relationship back because you broke up with your girlfriend. How did you get over the post-contest depression?
Jesus, you're bleak. I never broke up with a girlfriend during contests. I was never depressed because...
That's because you never took Trenbolone, that's why. If you would have taken Trenbolone, you would have broken up with your girlfriend.
I never used Trenbolone, only twice. Yeah, but no, getting ready for a contest, I never got depressed. I was always so happy because I'm like, the show's almost over. I can go back to eating. I don't have to take gear. This is fantastic. So as soon as the show was over, I was the happiest I've ever been. I was never depressed.
But you didn't feel like it's such a letdown. What do I do now? I don't have to do cardio twice a day. I don't have to go to the gym as much.
The only thing I found hard was knowing what to eat because for those 16 weeks, it's like, I have to eat this, I have to eat that. So the morning after the show, I wake up and I go, what can I have for breakfast? I'm like, fuck, I got too many choices now. I don't know what to eat. I'm like, Cocoa Pops, Fruit Loops, Lucky Charms. Yeah. What will I have? And so really, though, for the first week or two, you probably noticed you did it yourself. Because you look so good, you try and hang on to it for as long as you can.
Can't do it.
It's like, I've still got veins, I'm still looking full. And you try and hang on to it. About the third week, you're like, oh, the veins are going, fuck it. Then you just start eating whatever. You don't care anymore. But you try and hold on to that little bit of shape for a while.
You know how like when you go for your first like real meal, so you ate that night, but then you go and then you're like, I'm going to go to the breakfast buffet at the hotel from where the contest was. So you go down there, you get your cup of coffee. You almost try to emulate what you've been doing the whole contest. And then you're like, that donut looks pretty good there. I can actually eat that now. And those pancakes and that syrup. And then before you know it, you're sick to your stomach, right?
Oh, yeah. It's like I just have one bite. I just have a little bit.
Yeah.
Then you have a bit more. That's why I try and avoid the buffets after a contest for that reason, because you're full, but your mind's like, you haven't had it for so long. Go have it.
Right.
Go have this. And then you just sit there and you're waiting. You're like, maybe I'll just wait a bit longer. You do a little bit of a burp. I got a bit more room. I'll go eat something else. And like you said, you'll go there too. You get your, because you'll start where like you said, the donuts are or the croissants or the little apple strudel things, and you load your plate up and you sit down. You're like, now I've got it on the plate. I've got to try and eat it all. And you just feel the bacon.
Yeah. I was always of the mindset that once the show was over, I was so excited to get back to the drawing board to start working on my weaknesses and putting muscle on. And now that I could eat, that I was super excited. But I have clients that, when they done competing, the first couple weeks they're all right. But then as they see their conditioning start to deteriorate, they start deflating a little bit because they're going off the drugs, they start getting like depressed. And then all of a sudden they disappear, and I'm not like hearing from them. I'm not getting updates from them. 3 months later, I get an update. And they look terrible. And then they're like, oh, I was depressed. I didn't know what to do. And not all my clients like it. A lot of them are very hyper focused, like I was. But there are people like that who get very depressed after a show when they see their bodies changing. What do you suggest? Like, what advice, what words of wisdom can you give the people who might fall into that category to keep them in a state where they're actually in a good mood and that they can actually refocus themselves?
You do know you're talking to me, Dave, and you're asking me for words of wisdom.
I am.
You got me confused with
that's because you're. How old are you now? 49. You're almost 50 years old now.
Oh yes.
Happy birthday, by the way.
I'm getting wise.
Happy birthday.
No, I find if you just focus on something, because like I said, when you get ready for a contest, like I said, your mind is so focused on. You got to do cardio. You got to prep your meals. You got to train. Your mind is so physically occupied with so many things leading up to a show that when it's over, you're like, what do I do now? It's almost like when you're that little kid and Christmas is coming, you're so excited. Right. Christmas is, then when Christmas is over, you're like, and then it's like, dude, if you don't do good at the contest, or if you're a young kid and you get shit Christmas presents, you're like, that was shit. So it's like, you got to focus on something else. So I'd go back to the drawing board. I'd go back to the gym, focus on my training and what I needed to do, as long as you can find something to do, because a lot of pros, especially when all you do is sleep, eat, and train,
right,
for leading up to a show, you're so busy that when it's over, like you said, if you train in the morning, you go to the gym early, you train for 2 hours, you get home at 9 a.m. Now you're like, what do I do now for the rest of the day? Watch TV? I'll go for a walk. No, I won't go for a walk. That's too much cardio. I'll just take a nap. So like I said, you go from like 100 miles an hour down to almost put the brakes on. But I think actually today it might be better for some guys, because now having social media, you can occupy yourself with Instagram, doing podcasts and that sort of thing. So there's so much more to do now. Back in our day, when the show's over, once you're over, it's like, well, I've read that Flex magazine. I have to wait another 4 weeks till a new magazine comes out. So there's really I'd go to the movies. I'd just go and hang out. Or because I lived in Venice, I said it was such a great time back then with all the pros at the gym. Like John said it before, a lot of guys, even if you weren't training, you'd just go to the gym to talk to people or see people, or go to the firehouse and hang out at the firehouse, and because there's always pros and people in there, so you'd pretty much just find things to do that way. But yeah, I can see why I said people do just, I think, because your mind's just so focused on that contest for 3 to 4 months that when it's over, you're almost lost. You're like, it's almost like you need that goal. So I just find other goals to do, whether it be in business or whatever it is you're doing, whether it be like a new project you're going to do, or training other people or stuff like that. But you just got to find your focus and put that same focus you had on the contest somewhere else. Otherwise, you will go mad sitting there going, what do I do now? I'm bored, or what do I do? Right. It's like
I tell you hit it right on the head. There's no reason why you can't take that same focus that you had, that hyper focus for the show, and put it on something like doing, hey, you know what? I'm going to start a YouTube channel, or if you have a YouTube channel, I'm going to dedicate myself to doing one video every single day, or at least 5 days a week. Okay? If you don't know how to video edit, teach yourself how to video edit. It's not that hard. Buy a program. Videotape yourself doing something, showing how you prepare meals, how you train, so anything at all, how you went through your contest prep. And you know what? You get in the habit of putting it up every single day. Even if 5 people watch it initially, eventually those 5 people will become 10, which will become 20, which will become 50, which will become 100 and 1,000. And then you'll before you know it, you're making money on YouTube. So
well, even if you just do it for yourself, like in the old days, you'd have a diary or a book to write in. Now you can record it on video, so you can talk about your diet, your training, what you did. Even if it's just for yourself and you put it on a YouTube channel, somebody else might find that interesting, and then somebody else finds it interesting, and they're like, hey, that's what I'm going through, or that sounds good, I might try that. So even if you're just doing like a video diary for yourself, other people might catch on and enjoy it. So as I said, it keeps you busy and stuff. But like I said, you do that one when you're not bodybuilding, you've got your other thing where you're doing snakes. So even if you've got a hobby, video that, talk about that, find something interesting. Because I'm sure this day and age, with the amount of people that are in the world, someone as crazy as something that you do, I'm sure something does. Like when I told that story about the cocaine and shoelace tying to a coffee table, I'm sure there's others out there that have done that, Dave. I can't be the only one. Maybe I am, but maybe I'm going to start a coffee and shoelace YouTube channel.
That's right. There you go. Well, I see these sometimes. I watch some of these YouTube videos. They're guys out there that all they do, their whole channel is devoted to how to keep your hair. All the different products out there, all the things they do, all the hair, transplants, the tattooing, the micro tattooing of the head. Every video is devoted to hair loss, and they're making a fortune. They got millions of people watching these videos, and so it could be something like that. It could be a video game channel. I mean, Chris Cormier was a big video game guy back when he competed. Imagine if he would have just videotaped himself playing. How many guys would have watched it? Probably watching Chris commenting as he's playing his video games. I mean,
they would.
Yeah.
Well, can you imagine anything you can think of today? If you type it into search engine, I'm on YouTube now. If you put anything in there, I'm sure there's a video about it. And now, I remember when I got the Mustang in it, there was a couple of things. I'm like, I wonder how I do that. And I got the manual there like this. I'm like, oh, fuck, looking for that. And I got to read it. I was sitting in the car, YouTube, how to change this or how to do that. Yeah. And there you are, instructional videos, someone describing how to do it. Right. And it's so much easier to watch the video than try and read. Like I'm one of those people, if you show me how to do something once, I'll pick it up like that. But if I'm reading an instruction book or someone says, take part A and do part B and twist it that way, I'm like, what the fuck? It's like, if I put something together from IKEA or whatever, I've always got parts left over. I'm like, oh, I mustn't need them. I just toss them away. So shelf falls down inside.
or you put something together and there's one screw left, and that screw is probably necessary for something, and then you find out, you go back through the manual and you're like, oh, that was step one. You got to take the whole thing apart now because you can't finish the thing unless you put that screw in the right place.
I just tell my wife that's the spare screw. They always give you spares in case you lose them. But I've done the same thing. I'll put a whole cupboard together, and when I undo the door, eventually look at it, I'm like, how it's got they might have the trimming on this side, but I put it on so the wood's facing. I'm like, fuck. Now to turn that shelf around, I've got to take the sides apart, and I'm like, oh, fuck. Like I said, I've gone to step 9 in step 4 instead of step 1. I just look at the picture on the box and go, that's how it goes.
There's these reptile racks that I use for my snakes, and they're hybrids now. They come in like there's like a million pieces in a box, which makes the shipping very cheap. And you put the whole thing. I paid some kids to put it together. So I said, you know what? When I went to buy the next rack, I said, you know what? There's another company that makes very similar high quality racks, but they come all together, but the shipping's way more expensive because it's all together. I'm like, I don't care. I bought those racks because I just don't want to put it. I don't want to put the stuff together. I don't have any time. It's not time is money, as I always say. But you know what? The trick is that if you're good at putting stuff together or doing things, make instructional videos. Those guys who make those instructional videos, those videos get millions of hits, and you monetize those videos. You can make a lot of residual income from YouTube.
Well, not even that. If you're good at doing stuff like that, I know we've got people here because everything you buy these days, you got to put together. You got to put together. Just like this guy that's coming around now is just out there fixing the wheel on the car. I went and had a look at it. He's almost done. I'm like, I can't even see where the scratch was. But there's people like that, like they're sort of like handyman, or there's one called the husband something or whatever. It's like this guy, he's like a handyman, but Brisbane's like a husband name, the neglected husband or something. So any job you need, he comes around like a handyman. And there are people here where they've got a business where if you buy that type of stuff, because there's a lot of older people or women who don't have the tools, so you just call these people up and they'll come around and put it all together for you and stuff like that. So,
do they travel to the U.S.? I need him. I need his number. By the way, I live in Florida.
What's happened to your bunk beds, Dave? I haven't heard about the bunk beds.
The bunk beds got returned. I got news. I bought a bunk bed from Rooms To Go that was too tall. I have a huge staircase. They can't get up the staircase. I'm thinking, they can't get it up my staircase. Then there's no way they get it up anyone else's staircase. So twice it came broken. The third time it came broken, and they couldn't even get up the steps. So my wife just said, you know what? Take it all back. We don't want it. So we gave it back. So kids are bunk bed less.
Got a sleeping bag.
So my son has a mattress on the floor now. He's sleeping on it.
Just tell your kid the latest trend is everyone's got little tents in their room. It's like camping. You just sleep in a tent.
He'd rather sleep in that, believe me. I told him it's because you're not behaving yourself. That's why we had to send the bunk bed back. Which he's not. So
get him one of those race car beds, the nice beds that look like a race car.
He has a Captain America bed, but it's a little twin bed. He wanted the bunk bed so he can climb and break his neck, jumping off the thing.
Don't talk about Captain America. I saw that latest edition on July 4th where Captain America saying the American dream isn't real anymore and it's all a lie. They've actually made Captain America comic, the last one, political, saying that the American dreams are.
Wow.
Oh, you didn't see that? Oh my
No.
God! Did you ever see the edition of This was when the woke crowd was coming out. There was an edition of Superman even where Superman sort of gave up his allegiance to America because, he used to fight for truth, justice, and the American way.
Right.
He didn't believe in America anymore and
He's
the racism.
fighting for the Chinese way now?
No, he went to join the UN. He was fighting for the UN instead of America. I'm like, why do people politicize comic books?
I didn't even know that the comic books are still being produced on a regular basis, but that's funny.
Yeah.
So kids still read. That's good to know. I'm glad to hear that.
They look at the pictures, Dave.
Yes. If I was, if I was an artist of that, I'm an abstract artist. I'm not if I could draw those comic book characters, man, I don't know. I probably would never leave my house. I'd be drawing. If I was like Jerry Beck and could draw the stuff that he does, I'd be painting murals on the side of buildings and stuff like that because that's a true talent. There's two types of talents that I'm very jealous of, and I don't think because I don't know if I could ever achieve the level of what some of these people have. People who can have amazing artists who can basically look at something and draw it, and people who have that the musical gift where they can just play anything. You could say, hey, play this, or make something up, and they can just go, and it's like, it's amazing. That's a gift.
I got a friend like that. He can't read music, but if you play him a song, he could sit at a piano or whatever and just copy it straight away.
That's a gift, yeah. Jimmy the Bull's like that.
Even singing, I think if you're like one of those naturally gifted singers, where I think, imagine just having that talent where if you're like an Elvis or a Michael Jackson or someone where you're on stage. We know what it's like as a bodybuilder on stage, but imagine being a singer with hundreds of thousands of people there listening to you singing. You got them in the palm of your hand. And,
Well, if I had to come back in my next life, I would definitely want to be a rock star. Those guys have had to have the best life, even though they're a little nuts and they did a lot of drugs. Most of them back in the day.
Yeah. I mean, unlike bodybuilders,
right. The problem is that most of these prodigies, especially they die young, unfortunately, because they're too gifted. They're too gifted.
I was listening to a radio show the other day, and they were rattling off. I think it was Hendrix, was it, or someone else? But there was like 6 or 7 of them who all died at 27.
Wow.
Like just from. All 27 years old, they all died.
Yeah,
it was like weird. That must have been the number. I think even Amy Winehouse was 27.
Yeah.
It was like
Kurt Cobain,
if you look at the list,
right? Kurt Cobain was
he was 27. Yeah, it's like this magic number.
Unbelievable. Well, yeah, I mean, you live a hard life. I mean, but a lot of singers are troubled. That's why. A lot of bodybuilders are troubled too.
But now we have what's his name? Who is it? Keith Richards, who's still
yeah,
going.
he might be. I think he's been dead his whole life. That's what the problem is. That's why he can't be killed. Well,
still have some out there. Look at the ones like Rod Stewart who are still going. Sounds great. Still. And
Triple H told me, he was very good friends with Lemmy from Motorhead. If you remember the I Am the Game, that was Lemmy made that song specifically for Triple H to walk out to. And Triple H told me when he went to see him, he was living like a rock star till the day he died. He still drank and smoked. He refused to change anything about his lifestyle. He lived that rock style lifestyle, and he lived a long time. He wasn't a young guy, and he to the day he died, he lived it. Who's better?
You notice though, I've seen people who live that life, doing drugs and drinking and stuff, and they live. It's like you think, how does someone do that and not die? But then I've seen them. They get in their 60s and go, I better clean up my act. And when they
die, yeah.
Is when they die.
Yeah. Well, that's what Lemmy thought.
It's preserving you.
Lemmy thought that's right. He said, if I stop the drugs, I'll probably die because I'm so used to them. That.
But it's like people that drink alcohol and they'll stop drinking it. It's like I said, because they're like sort of addicted to it. It's like they'll get the shakes.
The DTs,
they'll get sick. It's almost like if they don't get to the point where they're drunk, but they just continually drink each day, it sort of keeps them normal. Their body's used to it. Yeah. It's almost like they're pickling themselves.
It's funny. My father, when he went to get his hip replacements done, they have the questionnaire you got to fill out, and they ask you, do you drink? How often? How much? So he wrote a bottle of wine. So when they look at it, they're like, oh, sure, you drink a bottle of wine a week? He like, no, I drink a bottle of wine every night. And so, or every day, throughout the day. And they're like, you're an alcoholic. He's gonna go get the DTs. And my father was fine. He had my father could stop and start drinking. It was like, because he only drank wine, really. It would not affect him one bit. He could take it or leave it. It was amazing.
It's like, there's people, I said, there are, what do you call them, like functioning alcoholics, where somebody could drink a certain amount and be drunk as a skunk, and these people can drink and just function as normal. We wouldn't even know they had a drink unless they blew into a breath testing device and you see, wow, you're over the limit, but yet they talk normal, they walk a straight line. You wouldn't even know they had a drink. But if we drank the same, we'd be like,
oh, we'd be fucking fucked out of our minds. Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so the bottom line is, guys, when you do a contest and you're done with the contest, immediately divert that same energy you were putting into the contest into something else that you find interesting, something productive. Use it to your advantage. You have a tremendous, tremendous ability to make your own world, to make your own living, to make a lot of money without even leaving your house, just by putting videos up, social media. Nurture that. It's a gift that you guys are being given. We didn't have that. We had to like try to get supplement contracts back in the day. We had to try to get, magazine. You guys don't have to depend on anyone. You don't have to answer to anyone except yourself. You could make your own living. Don't be depressed.
But even the off season, even though it's called off season, you can still treat your off season like your contest, because you can still train twice a day or once a day.
Yeah.
I know in the off season I was bad at it. I never watched my meals, but even off season, you can still prep your off season meals, because I find this is probably where I lost some. I could have been better in the off season, because I just ate anything I ate when I wanted to. But if you've got that same regimented off season as you do contests, and still eat 5-6 meals in your off season, but more calories and still getting in the right proteins, you can still treat it and still have that same focus and make your off season almost like contest prep. But now this is your off season prep to make those gains for the quality when you dive back down for your next show. Because when off season come for me, it was off everything.
I know. You were off your regimen.
People are like, what are you having today, Lee? I'm like, oh, whatever the staff at McDonald's are cooking me.
You know what? I ate McDonald's every day, but I also had, but I cooked all my other meals and ate very regimented, had my shakes and everything like that. So, you can have flexibility in your diet, but you could also, you should have structure to it, because otherwise you're not going to make the gains you want.
Exactly.
All right, let's wrap this thing up. Lee, thank you. Oh, by the way, for guys, if you want to see this week, I guess coming up, I don't know when we're going to air it, we did 2 episodes of Iron Debate, Lee Priest, myself, King Kamali, Mila Sarshev, and Melvin Anthony. You guys are not going to want to miss these 2 episodes.
when we did the last bit there, when we were talking about Kai again, as we're talking and Sid's talking about it, you want to see, I think, and every comment's going to be, fuck Kai, we're sick of Kai.
Oh, of course, of course.
I can just see the comments now. What, you think you can win? Back down.
Well, I can promise you that the episode had there was a lot of strong opinions given. I'll leave us at that. And Lee, thank you for waking up early.
Don't miss Melvin.
What?
Don't miss Melvin's opinion on Sean Ray in the beginning.
Yeah, I know I'm going to be the first person to get the phone call from Sean Ray. I know it, but look, Melvin was wanted to talk about it, and I'm friends with Melvin, so I gave him the ability to talk about it. So.
I'm just upset. I'm going to have a crying out at Sean Ray's not talking about me anymore. He's talking about Melvin. I thought Sean and I were tight, but now he's moved on.
You were pretty quiet. You didn't even get a word in edgewise on that one, on that conversation.
I'm just listening. I like hearing other people talk about Sean. If I say it, they always just say, "Oh, Lee hates Sean." So I like hearing other people's stories about Sean and stuff.
Yeah, Lee was very patient on that interview. All right, we're gonna wrap this up, guys.
Plus, I did leave to drive my wife to work for 10 minutes. And
yeah, she did. That was the fastest. I didn't even know you were gone until you texted me. I couldn't believe how quiet you got out of there. So.
It's nice. It's nice to know I missed.
She must work around the corner or something like that. You got back very quickly,
Yeah, she does. It's just down the road there. But there's a park you got to go to, and it's dark, so I didn't want her walking through the park. I didn't want her getting raped or anything. So.
What a nice husband you are. What a thoughtful husband you are, walking your wife to work.
If anyone's going to rape my wife, Dave, it's going to be me. And plus, the park is dark. If they go to rape her, how can I record it? There's no lighting. Jesus.
And on that note,
you got to think.
And on that note, until next week, I'm Dave Palumbo with Lee Priest for another installment of Iron Rage.